Hi, I'm Megan again, and your host for a 5-minute news brief. So, as everyone is already aware, the next man in line for the most powerful person in the world is Donald Trump. In looking forward, I invite you to take a journey with me back in time. Let's all take part in an exercise that causes all MAGA to pull up their little white cloaks and engage in a little bit of reflection. Despite all of his attempts during his presidency, Trump was unable to discard the program that allows millions of Americans to have health care regardless of whether or not they have pre-existing conditions. This was a large part of the many campaign promises back in 2016 that he failed at delivering. Badly. He tried multiple times, could not quite get it right. Despite his loss, destroying what is commonly known as Obamacare remains one of the promises of this presidency. And let's hope, since it's been in the planning stage for the past 9 years, that he's actually got something planned. He did famously run on the controversial promise to build a wall on the southern U.S. border. While this policy was presented with the promise of funding from Mexico, instead, he gave us a DIY project funded by, you guessed it, the American taxpayers. Unfortunately, because reality is where we actually live and not some Delulu land where saying words makes things magically appear, his wall failed spectacularly, and not so much because it wasn't attempted, but because the US paid for it. And by it, I mean sad-looking portions of the wall that are already deteriorating. Many are experiencing deep pain and uncertainty due to his election, but may we see this information as a bit of a hopeful shift for those of us that aren't fans of his apparently massively supported policies built on hatred, division, and racism. This includes his plan to deport entire families. Having temporary protected status, also known as legal immigrants, would not stop them from actually being deported. And this came out of Trump's mouth. So whether or not we can believe it, nobody knows. Oh, and let's not forget the plan to impose tariffs on all things imported from China. Because we all know how tariffs work, right? You know, the additional cost that is placed on the goods that are coming into the country that they're coming into pays for and then passes on to the consumer. The consumer being the United States consumers. This would, of course, be bad because we're all already worried about the price of everything being way too high. This would cause the cost of everything from car parts to clothing to electronics to go up by as much as 40%. In fact, some companies are already preparing and bracing for these proposed drastic changes. That said, it is good news that Trump doesn't live up to his campaign policies, because they would tank the economy. So that's a plus. We can remain hopeful that 11 million people, regardless of their immigration status, will not be deported. And not just because of the moral questions that this brings up, but also because of the extreme and immense cost this would place on the recently stabilized United States economy. We can remain hopeful that everything imported from China won't cost as much as 40% more than it does today because of these new tariffs, because despite Republicans having the majority in the House and the Senate in 2016 when Donald Trump was elected, he was too much of a dunce to get anything done. And a win that I chalk up to many Americans choosing to research what is a tariff and who pays for a tariff until after voting, as opposed to before it. This is evidenced by the recent uptick in Google searches for "Can I change my vote?" in many red states. Hopefully, this deep pit of despair that has been caused by your research can be eased a bit by the fact that he was a dingbat then He might be a dingbat now. You never know. If not, enjoy the shit show you helped create, I guess. In closing, remember, it's okay to say that I was wrong, and it's okay to have some regrets. Those that didn't want these policies or this person in the presidency in the first place, we're not going to lick your wounds for you. However, you will be more than welcome to stand beside us as we all fight to make the right a little bit less wrong. Again, I'm Megan. I'll see you next time.